through that breakup, I had a lot of clarity around what I want in a relationship, what I need, why I need it, what I'm absolutely not tolerating in my next relationship, what are the things that I'm flexible on. And I started making lists. And I started making a list in my phone. I still have it. And the title of the note in my phone, it says my husband. And then after that, there's like a bunch of things my like dream man doesn't do and does do. And then I was like, I need another list because this isn't enough. So I made another list that was like my wants, my needs, my preferences, and my desires. And then I realized, okay, I'm not going to be in a relationship with myself. So if I have this list, this is really just about me and what I need from the other person. That's the clarity piece, the C of the care model. I have clarity now on what I envision in my dream relationship, dream scenario, best case scenario. Now, when I start dating, there's another person involved. So now we have to come up with agreements based on both of our lists, both of our wants, needs, preferences, and desires.
Welcome to the Somatic Pleasure Podcast, where the body is the teacher and sensation is the path. I'm your host, James Hummocky. This is a space where breath slows, skin listens, and we enter the raw, unfiltered currency of intimacy, desire, and embodied truth. This space isn't sanitized. It's real. Some of what we touch on may be explicit and not suitable for children. So if you're ready to feel all of it, come on in. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Somatic Pleasure Podcast. And today I am so excited and pleased to bring you somebody who I just kind of know a little bit, but I've been following her on Instagram as well. Dakota Ramppen. Hopefully I'm saying that right. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, good. And which part does that come from? Does that come from the Irish or the Dominican? The name.
Irish German side.
Okay.
Of the family, my dad's side. Yeah. My mom, my sister, and I, we all have different last names. So
there you go. Welcome to mixed families.
yeah.
So, Dakota, you are a relationship coach. Is that your primary
Identity. Yeah.
identity? Let's say in work,
Yeah.
because you're also a sexuality educator too.
Yeah. So usually, like when people ask what I do, I say I'm a relationship coach and sexuality educator. That's my work, like in this field. But by day, I'm a paralegal, so I help people with their divorces and their prenups and their mediation. So I just can't get away from relationships.
I see. This is great. It always amazes me because I've interviewed two different people on this podcast who have criminology. They have bachelor's and master's in criminology. I mean, one was actually thinking about joining the FBI at some point. So
That's fancy.
it's just
I have thought
interesting.
about, going to law school, but I'm like, let me be a paralegal before I decide to get into that much debt.
Right. But, it just seems kind of like these opposites, relationship, sexuality, and then the law,
Yeah.
I know it's not any different. Personally, I know that you have to have that that inner combination of things to be able to actually mitigate some of the worst or some of the harder problems in relationships, right? Well, another thing is you've developed what you call the care model. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more as we get into the podcast. And I know you from the first time I met you, and everything you put out, this tough love, honesty, with a lot of practical tools, a lot of humor, it feels like, and also a lot of honesty. Like you bring yourself into the work that you're doing, and you're going through some of the stuff, or you have gone through the stuff that people come to you with. So I love that your authenticity that you bring into your work.
Thank you.
Um, let's see, what else do we get? See, normalizing taboo topics while challenging toxic relational patterns. I want to dig into that little piece right there. Um, and then you support your clients through relationship, anxiety, jealousy, boundary issues, and of course, pleasure expansion.
You
Because you
can't
do
forget
work at
that.
you work at an adult toy store, don't you,
I
as
used
well?
to. Yeah, I
Oh,
used
you
to
you
work in an adult toy
okay.
shop for about a year and a half, and then I transitioned out of that, and that kind of led me into my paralegal work.
Oh, we're gonna have fun here. Here's another thing that I found out about you is that you have been featured in Cosmopolitan, and you write, regularly on Pornhub's, Sexual Wellness Center. I didn't know Hub had that,
A lot of people don't. Pornhub has a blog, everyone, and it's super
and it's amazing. And you got a lot on there, and I read through some of the stuff that published up there. It's really amazing.
thank you.
So
Yeah, I've
now I
also
have a
been
new
writing.
outlet that I'm gonna explore too, so
Yeah,
anyway,
you
go ahead.
should, honestly, but I've been also writing for them for a little over a year, and a lot
Mhm.
of that is relationship skill based,
Yeah,
information, so check out
absolutely.
Pornhub's blog.
Yeah, it's not like the old Madam Xavier, in in the Playboy magazines. Those were fun too,
They
I
were.
have to say. Um, so I just start this out with the first question. If you distilled your mission down, let's say, into one sentence, which probably you can't, because I can't, what would that be? Like, what would you say your mission is?
I would say my mission is to use tough love as a vehicle to make relational healing fun, engaging, in hopes that people can create their ideal relationships with the
Yeah.
other people that are involved in said relationship.
So what is tough love for you? Like, how do you use that? How do you define that? What does it look like when you're actually working with somebody?
Yeah, so I grew up in a Latin household, single mom. My dad was involved, but I grew up with my mom. She raised my sister and I, Dominican woman from Washington Heights. So a lot of spice was there. And a phrase we heard growing up a lot was tough love. And I'm a fan of kind of taking terms that historically have been used in kind of negative contexts and flipping them on their heads and infusing a lot more love into them and kind of reframing something that could be really harmful for a lot of people. So, tough love for me now means naming, facing, and working through the hard truths that come with healing while infusing a lot of compassion, a lot of empathy, a lot of understanding. So, the tough part doesn't come from you know, being spoken down to or being yelled at. The tough part comes from facing the really difficult parts of ourselves, our shadows that
Mhm.
need healing and need love to be the best person, best friend, best partner we can be.
That's well, one of the things that comes to mind when I think about that too is boundaries. And, if we haven't really experienced boundaries, or we've experienced, kind of toxic boundaries, when I say that, I mean like abuse, or,
Yeah.
repression and control, those kinds of things. Um, Learning how to do that, I get this sometimes with my clients, like learning how to set a boundary. And when I say boundaries, like limitations, just
Mhm.
speaking up for yourself. And do you find that sometimes you have to be tough love or tough with people to get them to understand that they have this power within themselves? That might be kind of a leading question, I understand, but
No, I definitely agree though. Yeah, absolutely. Part of what I do with my clients or in my workshops, I like to think I say it how it is. So, there'll be times when I cut all the fluff and I'm not going to massage the message and I'm just going to give it to you the way it is because the sooner we just cut the BS, the sooner we can actually deal with what's at hand. So, there's definitely moments where, in order for us to get to the root of the problem, I'm like, we got to cut the shit. We just got to get to the problem. Why is this happening? Where is this pattern coming from? And sometimes I say things to my clients and they're like, ooh, like that hit or that hurt or like I felt that.
Mhm.
But that means that actual healing is happening because now we're activating the nervous system. We can actually engage with our bodies in that way. So there's definitely times when like I have to lean into the tough part. But then you always, the basis of the tough is the love. So that's always
Right.
grounded in there. And I'm very mindful of that. But when it comes to boundary work, I'm really big on holding workshop attendees, clients accountable to not just setting the boundary, because I think boundaries are very trendy right now. I think a lot of elements of self help are trendy, which I don't necessarily think is a bad thing. But you have to have a level of discernment when you're taking information from people on the internet or from anyone in general. So, a lot of times, boundaries that people think they're setting is them avoiding confrontation, is them
Right.
setting rules which are not boundaries. Boundaries are all about you. People can either meet you there or they can step away. So I think there's a lot of misunderstanding around what boundaries are and what they look like in action when you're implementing them. And I see a lot of like black and white thinking where like it has to be this or it has to be that, or here's the formula, or here's a 5-step plan of how to da 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 da. And I think similarly, when you're in school, it's important that we teach critical thinking in relation to our emotions and how we, go about expressing those as well. It's not a one size fits all approach.
Absolutely not. And, the word I like to use more now instead of boundaries is limits. This is where I'm at. This is what I can do.
Mhm.
And, if you can meet me there. Um, then, and I've seen this with the self-help movement. I'm glad that you brought that in. There's, this tendency to kind of soften everything and be so worried about everybody's feelings that the truth can't be said, in a fear of, offending somebody or hurting somebody's feelings and you don't want to re-traumatize somebody, obviously, right? I mean, and so you have to approach that. I love the way you're talking about that, though, is like it's not a one size fits all. It is definitely taking each person and situation individually.
Mhm.
But I know, and we kind of mentioned this a little bit at the beginning, you bring in your own experiences, your cycles with jealousies and breakups and even faking orgasms and, things that you've had in your in your past, and you bring that into your teaching. Um, how do you weave that in, those lived experiences with your clients or in your workshops?
I think a lot of times it took me a while and I'm still going through that process of like how much do I want to share? How do I want to
Mhm.
share it? So oftentimes the things that I share, and that's one thing I love about coaching. People are like, "Oh, are you a therapist?" I'm like, "No, I'm a coach." And there's pros and cons, right, to like each tract, but I feel like I have a lot more liberty in showing up as myself fully in front of my clients and in front of my workshop attendees or anyone that I'm meeting, who's meeting me in my work. So I kind of like, again, kind of use that discernment to determine in private settings with my clients, is this the right time to share? Is this just the right time to listen or to provide a tool? But I've also recognized that in sharing with my clients that I've dealt with a lot of their struggles as well. It kind of brings us to this common ground of like, hey, you're not alone. I've
Right.
either gone through this or I'm still going through it. And these are things that I've learned from myself, from others that can be helpful for you. I can't do the work for you. When it comes to my presence online, I still sometimes have those moments of like, did I say that thing? Or like, was that too much? Or maybe that wasn't enough. I could have shown up more fully being myself. And I think that's
Right.
just with like being a media persona, a content creator, like someone that has your own business and your own brand and your image, like a lot of this weight that's tied to it. But the content that does the most and the content that does the best and the coaching sessions that are the most fruitful are typically the ones where I am just showing up as is. And I recognize that it's really important for people to see coaches, professionals. It's important for people to see coaches, professionals, people with a bunch of letters after their name, people that have a big following also share that it's not like healing is a place that you arrive to and it's like, oh, I solved this, I'm healed. Like, I help
Right.
people with jealousy and relationship anxiety, but that doesn't mean I'm completely absolved of it. And I think it encourages people to think of healing as a continuous process. It's really about building your relational toolkit and having tools that work for you that you can implement. But when people message, I get messages all the time. I saw you talk about anxiety or jealousy or infidelity or, feeling insecure about how your vulva looks. Like people will always find those videos. And there's so many people in the world that someone's going to resonate with it and it's going to help them feel a little bit less alone. And then
Yeah.
we're a little bit closer to making the world a better place.
Absolutely. I mean, it's one of the reasons why I've also gone down the coaching track myself is, in fact, as somebody the other day was said, you must have a degree because, you're speaking so well, you're
Hmm.
obviously educated. I'm like, nope.
Surprise.
30 years of 30, 40 years of just really studying into this stuff, you know what I mean? And
Right.
it shows, right? I mean, it shows in your work. And again, it's one of the reasons why I wanted to interview you because the way, well, when I first met you, I could just tell you were somebody that was authentic and not feeding a big line to people, just to sell something. And when
Hmm.
I'm watching you online, I see that authenticity come through. I see that honesty come through. I see that real person come through. So, that's that to me, that's just really encouraging and inspiring, actually. So, now, one of the things that you've done is you developed what you call the care model. And so I'm just gonna turn that over to you. I want you to talk a little bit about it. What is it? And, yeah, just walk us through the way it works and how it might shift people.
Sure. So, the care model is a framework that I created to ultimately help people have monogamous relationships that are fulfilling for the long term. So clarity, agreements, realignment, and eroticism are the components that make up the care model. And I arrived to it after having my fair share of unfulfilling monogamous relationships, having some curiosity about non monogamous relationships, being in one, and then realizing that I am very monogamous. And not just by choice, but by like my orientation in the sense of like, this is just who I am. And I was finding so many resources during my time of exploring non monogamy about, you know, communication and managing jealousy and how to talk about your feelings and your partners and safer sex and da 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 da. And I was like, so much of the information we have about relationships is about monogamy as a society. And it's really outdated and it's kind of boring and it's very formulaic. And I guess you could argue like a framework, right? Like the care model could be formulaic in a sense, but everything is meant to be used to benefit the couple ultimately. So I decided to create something because I love lists, I love acronyms, I love a guide. So I was like, okay, there's got to be a bunch of other people like me in the world that want something that they can revisit in a pre
Mhm.
existing relationship or that they can start with in a new relationship and lay a really strong foundation of identifying chemistry
Hmm.
versus compatibility. Like you have good sex with someone, you guys laugh, you feel like best friends, but maybe you're not compatible long term. Maybe you're not compatible short term. Maybe there's a lot of things that or signaling that maybe this isn't what you want or what's aligned for you. So I started doing a lot of research, reading a lot about like monogamy historically, different types of monogamy, because even then, like there are different ways to be
Hmm.
monogamous outside of like what we assume now in our dating world. You meet someone.
I want to talk about that. We're put a little pin in
Yeah,
that.
great, I'm glad because
Great one.
that's a lot of what I
Yeah.
deal with too, and I mean, not anymore, thankfully, in my personal life, but, like, with people that I talk to about the care model. So it really just came from a place of personal need and then seeing that reflected in our society. So I was like, "Let me, like, create something that can kind of help guide people to more fulfilling monogamous relationships long term." Because a lot of people will say, like, monogamy isn't necessarily the issue in monogamous relationships, it's the monotony. It's things kind of plateauing and not having the tools to keep the spark alive
Mhm.
or, you know, get to know your partner as they're changing over the years that you're with them. They're not the same
Oh,
person you were
so
yesterday.
important. Yeah. Mm. Right. I mean, it seems, like you wouldn't you have to second guess that, but it is something. And unfortunately, I feel like we don't do that. We don't plan for changing with the person, as bodies change, aging, whatever it is, and
Mhm.
different interests. Um, so yeah, talk to me a little bit about what the different kinds of monogamy you were mentioning. I'd like to hear a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So we have what most people do, which is default or prescribed monogamy. Speaking to the point I mentioned before of like a lot of people in our society, you meet someone on an app or you meet someone out at a bar, an event, you guys go on a date, you go on more dates, you have sex, you kind of assume that the other person's not seeing anyone else. You assume exclusivity without having a conversation about what are we doing here? What do you want? What does that look like? And then you hope that the other person's exclusive. And then you hope that the other person asks you out, or sometimes it's like, well, I thought we were just, I didn't have to ask you to be my boyfriend, my girlfriend, my partner, because I just already thought we were together. Like, why does there need to
Mhm.
be a formality behind the question? And then you're in this relationship and you start to learn, possibly, that you're not as aligned as you thought, or there's a lot of people that find out that they're a lot more aligned than they thought. So you
Yeah.
have default prescribed. Um, you also have people that are monogamous only when they're like living together. So you could consider that a form of non monogamy, but in terms of like, we're only seeing one another when our life circumstances allow for that. And then when we're not
Mm.
together, we're not in a relationship at all. So it's not like, oh, I'm still in a relationship with this person. I moved to Spain and now we're in an open relationship. It's like, no, like we're only together when we're living together, or we're only together when we're living apart. So they're situational in terms of like the physical location. And then you have conscious monogamy, which really is just about choosing monogamy because it's what you want, it's what you need, not because society's telling you to do that, your grandma's telling you to do that, society's telling you to do that. So it's really stepping into monogamy with the awareness of not only the kind of relationship you want, but why you want it in the first place.
Mhm. That's fantastic. I think one of the things, well, throwing in my opinion here, but that people don't put enough thought into what kind of relationship they would like to be in. And when you're young, especially, there's plenty of room for experimentation and self-discovery and yada yada. But we don't have a really good framework to come back to. You were talking about, the frameworks, and maybe that's too formulaic. But as human beings, I just know this from psychology, is we need a frame. We need a container. And once we kind of embody that container, we can play with it more, right? We can do other things. We can shift it around a little bit. We can live in different countries and not be in a relationship with
Mhm.
that person.
Yeah.
It's really very, that's actually a very interesting point there. Um, Having lived that, but maybe not as consciously as the way you're describing it.
Right.
It's like, well, we're not together now, so
Yeah. Yeah.
3,000 miles away.
Right.
I guess we're doing something different. But so how did you come to this though? How did you come to the care model? Like what made you um develop that?
I
And
went,
why those specific pieces?
yeah. It honestly was a variation of my original happy, healthy hoe framework. Like when I first kind of started my business, I had the guide to being a happy, healthy hoe, and it was outlining what kind of relationship you want, why you want that one, how does it look, how does it operate. And as the years have gone on and I've kind of like found myself at a different place emotionally in relation to my work, in addition to going through like a really, really difficult breakup, um, from the non-monogamous relationship that I was in, and that relationship started out as non-monogamous. It then transitioned to monogamy, but I was monogamous with someone that was non-monogamous, learning that I'm very monogamous. So
Mm,
our ideas of monogamy were very different. For that person, it was like, well, I'm not having sex with other people, so we're monogamous. And for me, I was like, that's baseline. Like, that is great because that, by definition is monogamy, but that's not enough for me. So going through that breakup, going through that relationship, I mean, I was bent. I was going through it. And then I realized,
And you put a lot of that out online, I remember
yes,
that.
I had a whole like mini YouTube series called The Breakup Diaries where I was like crying on the internet as I was like healing in real time. But through that breakup, I had a lot of clarity around what I want in a relationship, what I
Mm,
need, why I need it, what I'm absolutely not tolerating in my next relationship, what are the things that I'm flexible on. And I started making lists. I mentioned I love lists. And I started making a list in my phone. I still have it. And the title of the note in my phone, it says my husband. And then after that, there's like a bunch of things my like dream man doesn't do and does do. And then I was like, I need another list because this isn't enough. So I made another list that was like my wants, my needs, my preferences, and my desires. And then I realized, okay, I'm not going to be in a relationship with myself. So if I have this list, this is really just about me and what I need from the other person. That's the clarity piece, the C of the care model. I have clarity
mhm,
now on what I envision in my dream relationship, dream scenario, best case scenario. Now, when I start dating, there's another person involved. So now we have to come up with agreements based on both of our lists, both of our wants, needs,
right.
preferences, and desires, which leads us to the next letter of the care model agreement. So those are co created. Then you think about trials and tribulations in relationships. That's the realignment, that's the R. There's going to be times when maybe our wants, needs, desires, preferences
Right.
shift. There's going to be times when there's tension. What is our toolkit for realigning? How do we approach when we're not on the same page, where there is some tension? And then the last piece, which isn't like chronological, it's not like, oh, you do this and this and this, and then you arrive to eroticism. Eroticism, I have as its own word because I think it deserves to have its own letter, its own section that you can then infuse into the other components of the care model. So it was really in me doing my own personal reflection that I was like, wait, I'm kind of creating this process here that's helping me like not just manifest the relationship I want, but also maintain it with
Right.
pleasure as an important component, i.e., E for eroticism.
Well, that's fantastic. You actually thought about this quite a bit.
Yes.
That is amazing, yeah, and how are people responding to that when you work with them?
It's
Or
going really well. I mean, between my clients, I've done numerous workshops now on sex positivity for the conscious monogamous. So, like, what does it look like to be sex positive and monogamous in spaces where maybe a lot of people are non monogamous? Maybe, you want to go to a sex party, but most of the people there are playing with one another. And maybe you don't want to go to a swingers party because you don't know where they are and you find yourself in this space. So, whether it's an article, whether it's a podcast episode, whether it's a client or a workshop, people are really starting to think critically about monogamy too, not
yeah,
just the intricacies that come with a non-monogamous relationship. Because a lot of what I talk about with my, non-monogamous friends, even where we're like two extremes, like on these ends of a spectrum of like how your relationship could operate, is that what makes these relationship styles successful really isn't that different.
right,
At the core of it, communication, repair, consent, pleasure, like those things are baseline. They have those in common. It's just the details in terms of how many people and da 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 gets involved. But people have been responding really well. And I think engaging with monogamy differently, um, in a way that is more conscious, is more intentional, is really starting to like unlearn what's been taught and kind of self learn, right? Like what's internal and what do I really want and what feels good for me. And out of the 8 other billion people in the world, There's got to be one. That,
There's gotta be one. I, I have a hunch you're not going to have much of a problem, but it's a very interesting thing, and I want to kind of ask you about this because there has been this huge swing into sort of non-monogamy or exploration, relationship anarchy, and all these different ways, polyamory, all these different ways of relating to each other. And in part, my sense is that it is driven by that monotony that we were talking about earlier, and not really having any frameworks or ways or tools to communicate and to adjust with different alignments as they come along, and the changes that happen. And now with all of this, there's so much communication happening, like you said, around non-monogamy and ethical non-monogamy, and the ethical slut, and all these different things that it's the language is becoming more mainstream, and it feels like there might be actually a shift or a swing back towards monogamy. Now, how do you feel about that? Does that seem possible, or do you see any trends happening
yeah, I
in
think
that?
so. I think when it comes, I mean, I even think about, I'm going to draw a parallel here. Like being a writer for Pornhub, I did like their yearly recap, right, of their statistics of what people are researching in terms of
Mhm.
their, porn searches. And historically, you would see like things that are considered taboo and like really extreme, like those are the things that are people looking for. But as we have the rise of like OnlyFans, self creators, it's really easy to find erotic content online, whether that be Instagram or Twitter or, you know, it's not easy. It's not, I'm sorry, it's not hard to like find naked pictures of people. So I think because erotica is so accessible now, we saw a rise in trad wife porn. We saw a rise in people searching up more like traditional, like this other end of the spectrum. We kind of like went
Well,
here a little bit, and now we're like, wait, this is so easy to find. I kind of am turned on by the complete opposite of it. And I think we're going to see that in relationship styles as well. Like as people learn about a thing, more people kind of get on the boat. And that's not to say that a lot of people are not inherently non-monogamous, that people are just playing monogamous or non-monogamous. But I think as a society, we do kind of see this sway and what people are practicing and exploring, as you said, as we have more language, as we have more creators and content and information, where people are like, oh, maybe this is the thing for me. Let me dip my toes into that. So I think we're always going to see this sway of like a lot of people leaning this way, a lot of people leaning that way, because in groups, people tend to take things to the extreme. And I think I found myself in that place where I was like, maybe my marriage didn't work out because I'm non monogamous. Maybe I need to have an open relationship. I was very naive in terms of how I was relating to the content that I was taking in around non monogamy. And I was like, well, if I can be okay with my partner having sex with other people, then I cured my jealousy. Like, that's my ultimate
hmm.
fear. So if I can be okay with my worst fear, I'm good. I'm healed. I'm a better version. What I realized, newsflash, not surprising, that's not true. I was like,
Right.
that's not the case. For some people, them working through that for themselves is really healing. And they do feel like they come out on the other side, that, they are
Yeah.
more evolved or a better version of themselves. But I think a lot of us can kind of find ourselves in that middle space, in that middle ground. And I think it's actually a far small, like a smaller amount of people that truly live on the extremes, but if you think about social media and marketing, those are typically the people that get the most follows or the comments are engaging, because as human, our nature is like, this is blowing my mind. Like, this is too far. But I think most of us kind of live in this like in between space where we're affected by our life circumstances, jobs, stress, family, emotions, like day to day feelings.
Mhm.
So I think that kind of allows for people to co create the relationships that they want rather than I have a formula for this and I have a formula for that, and I'm just going to stick to it.
I have a quick question for you. Would you be against seeing this podcast reach more people who could really benefit from it? If you're still listening, the chances are you've already received some valuable takeaways. Subscribing literally takes like 5 seconds, but it seriously helps us keep these conversations going. It's how we keep bringing in the guests whose stories provide the depth that you've come here for. So yes, I'm asking you to join the team. Hit subscribe, like, and share with somebody you know. And let's grow this thing together. Well, it feels like, there's a lot more choice these days. You know what I mean? There's just, there, as long as you're not, yucking somebody's yum, the monogamy is the only way, or, non-monogamy is the only way. There's just a lot to play with and to experience. And something you touched on felt really important, is that when you enter these spaces and explore these spaces, whether it is kink and BDSM and non-monogamy and, that side, or whatever it is, whatever kind of living in another country can be like that.
Mhm.
But, and allowing yourself to be open and teachable, you really do learn more about yourself and come to these conclusions that you're talking about, which is a much more clear idea of what I want, who
Mhm.
I am, how I fit into the world, and what kind of relationship would be most beneficial and healthy and fun for me. You know what I mean? So yeah, it seems like there's just so much more out there in the field now to play with, and it's more mainstream and more acceptable, not
Mhm.
across the board. One of the things that you said, like, yeah, the extremes, the people that are doing these crazier things, or the outliers, are the ones that seem to get more attention. And I look at my Instagram feed, my social media feeds, and I'm like, oh, geez, what I'm doing is just kind of normal. It's like it's not anything huge, but then all I have to do is just drive over to, North Dakota, or, you know, and I don't mean North Dakota doesn't have its culture, but it's just, it doesn't take much to get into, like, there's still a lot to be learned, in this, not just our culture, but around the world, actually.
Absolutely.
Um, so, I mean, you did mention this before too. You called yourself, or initially were talking about happy, healthy hoe. What does that identity mean to you? And do you still carry that with you? And yeah.
I feel like that identity is really important in my journey and my process. I wouldn't say now that I identify with that language. Like when I came up with it, what was that? 8 years ago? Like, it really felt like, yes. And there's still a lot of people that resonate with it. And a happy, healthy hoe is really just someone that is happy with the sex they are having or not having, and they're healthy about it. So there's this balance of like leaning into your pleasures, your desires, engaging in the kinds of relationships that you actually want. And the healthy component is not just your sexual health, but also your emotional health, your financial
Yes.
health in regards to sex, intimacy, relationships, dating, your financial health, like really
Mm,
incorporating the all the spheres of wellness into taking this term hoe, which has historically been used as an insult to someone who's kind of like loose and sleeps around a lot. And it's like, well, having sex with a lot of people, I don't think is inherently an issue. I think the harm can come from doing it from a place that maybe isn't the best. Maybe it's not coming from a place of clarity, or it's not coming from a place of self love or self worth. That doesn't mean that everyone that has sex with a lot of people doesn't feel that way. But we also have to name that it happens for some people. And then also the health component. So, are you being cognizant of these different spheres of wellness and health in regards to your sex life?
mhm.
Great. You know, do you just want a fuck
Have
buddy?
fun.
Yeah. Like, do
I
you
mean, yeah, if you're conscious about it, you can have a lot of fun, and there's a lot to play with.
exactly.
But yeah, that place, I would say that when I was younger, there just wasn't the education out there. Maybe the information was there, but I wasn't privy to it.
Right.
And so there was a lot of lack of consciousness, uh, 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 um, being accountable, safety, personal safety, as well as being safe with partners and whatnot. So yeah, that's well, actually, that just kind of comes into another thing too, is because here we are, adults. We've been doing this for a while. Um, and this education really feels like this information really needs to be available to young people. So I don't know, do you do any of that kind of outreach, or what are your thoughts around, educating our young people?
I actually used to teach kids. So, how my work started was I worked at a nonprofit in college teaching sex education to the youth of Newark, New Jersey. I'd go around New Jersey with a bag of sex toys and a bag of arts and crafts. And like, I would teach people that sometimes
Wow.
older than me at the time. And then I found myself working in a school, a middle school, where I created a curriculum for grades 5 through 8. We couldn't call it sex ed. Obviously, we called it human development because we taught other things. I taught nutrition, goal setting, you know, meal planning, budgeting, life skills. And then the end, which is what the kids were looking forward to, was the sex ed, the health class. So, considering I was one person out of 50 plus schools teaching this class, and I came up and like revised this whole curriculum based on New Jersey state standards, I did a lot of that work. And then I realized, I mean, the kids were the best part of the job, but I realized our kids are going home to parents and caregivers that are not healed, that are navigating their own relationship
Right.
issues, a single parent household, mom is struggling, bad relationship with dad may not even be around, stigma around. I had many students that were raised by single mom and, you know, mom had a girlfriend, but we don't call mom girlfriend. Or my uncle's gay, but we're quiet about it. And I was like, these are the people that are closest to them. These are the people that they're going home to. These are the spaces where this
Mhm.
is the model for relationships, interpersonal romantic relationships. So I was like, okay, I love the kids dearly, but I kind of want to go to the source. I want to work with adults that have kids, may have
Mm.
kids, may be an auntie or a grandma or a godmother in some way that are around children to kind of create this trickle effect of like generational healing. So my work now, I don't work with kids directly outside of my relationship coaching and sex education. I do consulting as well, and I train educators. So I will go into organizations. The most recent one I did, I went to an organization in New York City and I trained their staff on how to teach and talk about situationships with youth, the situationship epidemic. So we talked about, what does that look like? Because a lot of our youth, they're looking at the same content we are on TikTok and Instagram. They have access to the same information. How do we bring up these conversations that are culturally relevant, that, we see or they're seeing in the media, and really flesh out the ideas that they're having and the habits they're creating around relationships?
Mm. And how successful do you feel like you're being on that?
Well, I've been
Getting
asked to come back, so I think so far so good.
Well, I don't think, it's not about you. It's
Of
just that,
course.
the powers that be and the structures, seem from this side, fairly resistant to that kind of work. But I'm glad to hear that it's happening and that you're getting in there and able to bring a different message,
Yeah.
bring a different way of looking at things. And um yeah, it's a tough one getting this information out without, outside of the bubble that
Yeah.
that you and I sort of run in. I think, it's like
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean,
it's
that's part
talking
of
with
the
this.
reason why I quit working in schools. It was because what the kids actually need and what I was allowed to give were very different. I was like, you know, I can't finish my lesson on how to tell the difference between a reliable source and fake news because I got homegirl crying in the bathroom because the guy that she liked commented on another girl's photo and now everybody's talking about it. I was like, in order for me to like really kind of like dig my nails in, you know, like really get the nitty gritty and give the youth what they need, the education system for me felt very stifling. So when I work
Yeah.
as an independent contractor, people know who I am, what they're signing up for, what they're getting. They believe in the mission, they believe in the work. So that kind of like, it's like a double-edged sword in a sense. It's like a curse and a blessing. Like, you know, you kind of miss out on the people that you feel like really, 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 really need it. But then like everyone really needs it. So the organizations that are able to obtain my services, let's say, you know, it feels great, but I
Right.
also,
Yeah.
you can't help but feel like, you know, there's so many other people or places that need this too, but you also boundaries. You got to kind of protect your state when you work with such delicate topics.
Right. I mean, it doesn't do anybody any good to try to force things down their throat
No.
in some situations,
Right.
most situations.
Right. I see what you're
Which sort of brings me into this other place that I wanted to talk. Thinking of education, it's actually fantastic to talk to you because I did not know that you were that deeply involved in education and that you've been doing this for so long. So I'm getting to know you a little better. I love it. That's
right.
awesome. I think what the things that you're bringing in are just so valuable and valid in this, especially in this time, because we're not just
Mhm.
talking about sex. We're talking about uh again, community and communication and societal change,
Yep.
really. I mean, at its foundation. So it's fun to get in there and, like, I mean, I know you said you worked at an adult toy store,
Yeah.
and are you still making massage candles? I don't
No,
know,
those
or
are
no.
going too. There's a lot of changes, like, you know,
Okay.
massage
But, are you
out, sex toy shop is out. I find myself talking more about relationships and less about
right.
sex. That like it's like a very I just turned 29, so I'm gonna be going, this is my last year in my 20s, and I'm like, oh my gosh, so many changes.
So many changes. Well, hang on, honey. I'm turning 61 in November, so, I'll be let's talk some changes, yeah. No, but, yeah, it I one of the things I really value about, we'll just call them, the younger generation, at least the way I'm seeing it, is that there seems to be a lot more awareness and, yeah, like a better communication, like a better, emotional intelligence. I
Mhm.
look at my kids, and I'm like, "God, I wish I was there when I was that age," when I was 29.
I know.
I mean I was married and I had a family and a home and all of that, but, whew, it was the start for me. That
I
was
hear you.
29 was the start for me. But, in that, I like looking at your website and you have these workshops and everything from, butt stuff to how to handle rejection. So, like what ties all of that together? Like,
I
I
know.
know and I know you do other workshops too. They're there. I see them, but yeah,
Yeah. I mean, I think that was part of like this journey, right? Like, what do I like to talk about? What do people, not only like what do I want to talk about, but what do people have questions about? So a lot
right.
of like my approach to work was like, what do people have questions about? Working at an adult toy shop, people are always trying to do butt stuff. People are always trying to get throat spray for
I
dick
just
throating. And I was like, I just want to teach something about this so people can come in and like feel
right,
empowered to ask questions or have access to pre-existing knowledge, because there's also people that may not have access to go into your local adult toy shop and ask the person questions. Maybe
right.
you're nervous or it's awkward or you don't have a car or you don't have the money, you know what I mean? So I wanted to make a wide array of information accessible, but also like what is fun for me, what feels right for me, and what are people responding to. So a lot of the workshops you'll see, I mean, they range from everything from like, right, like you said, handling rejection to like something on butt stuff. Like there is an array there. And I feel like as I'm getting older, um, I'm having a lot more clarity too around the topics that resonate with me most, what I
Mhm.
feel most aligned with speaking about and sharing. And then the other topics, I have so many wonderful people in my community that I can like refer. You know, it's like, well, I don't do butt stuff workshops anymore, but I have a friend who does, and they're amazing. So,
And they're amazing. Yeah, that where we met at the Sex Down South, and the variety of workshops that
yeah,
are available in that place. It's just amazing. It's crazy.
absolutely.
And the sounds that you hear in some of these rooms is
Yeah.
also but one of the things too, though, and like the way I would tie some of this together, and maybe anyways, is that to do any of these practices or these explorations with a partner, or even with yourself, but mostly like with a partner, um, you have to have clarity. You have to have that communication. You have to be able to realign in the middle if something goes wrong. You know what I mean? That's sort of, I'm kind of putting it in your frame there, but
Hmm.
that's that teaching that level of communication with something that can be intense, because it's partially because it's taboo, and partially because it can be physically intense,
Hmm.
like whatever it is, flogging or whatever it is we're talking about. um it expands a person's capacity to be aware of what's happening in their body. And the way I look at it is, you can become more discerning about your true yeses and your true nos,
Hmm.
that clarity that you're talking about. And it isn't just in a sexual situation, because I feel like it translates. I'm writing an article right now about leadership, and it's just like it is
Mm,
about using those techniques to expand your capacity as a leader. So
yeah.
how I'd like to hear your thoughts on any of that.
I mean, I think, right, similar to like how set when I was working in a school and parents were like, "You're talking to my kid about sex? Like, are you gonna teach my kid how?" And I'm like, actually, like, no, like that's really not what we're talking about. So when we think about sexuality, we use the term sexuality because it's not just about sex. It encompasses these other skills that can really help you in other avenues of your life. You know, if I feel really comfortable when I go to my job and I feel capable and I feel confident asking for a raise because I know what I'm bringing to the table, why can't I pull, you know, some of that emotion, some of that confidence into my relationship when I'm asking my partner for something that I need or that I want? That's really important to me. Like, I'm showing up, I need this thing, etc. So I think instead of thinking about these skills in silos, like, oh, this is just a skill in the bedroom,
Right.
this is just a skill in relationships, it really can transform your life when you look at like taking those skills and applying them to so many different settings. I mean, speaking to leadership, you have to be a really good listener. You have to
Mhm.
be attuned to your community and your team. Same thing when you're in a relationship. It's really important to be a good listener. It's really important that everybody feels like we're in this together and you genuinely are in it together. You know, like someone's not going to drop you because you like misspelled a word in an email, or your partner's not going to drop you because, you forgot to
Right.
take out the trash because you had a really busy week.
Right, right, right. Yeah, well, that's speaking to actually a question that I was gonna bring up anyway, but, how do you bring this information more into, like, a mainstream audience, or you're writing for Pornhub. You're not
Mhm.
gonna get everybody in the country, reading the Pornhub articles, but, maybe Cosmopolitan. And so how do yeah, bringing these ideas and into the mainstream. What are your thoughts on that?
I think my Instagram is probably my best like effort at that, social media
Yeah.
truly. But also like in-person events and outreach that way. I meet a lot of people who know people who know people who know people. And then before you know it, you have like this chain, this web network of people that are related. And they're sharing your content, or, somebody accessing, maybe they can't access Pornhub, my article's there, but I try to keep my blog on my website, fresh, up to date, posting things there. I even
And
put
it is, I saw it
Yeah,
yesterday.
I put it on my Facebook, like, people
Yeah.
that are family members or that saw me grow up. I'm just like, well, this is what I do now. Here's the article on, how to have anal sex or, like all of those kinds of things. So I think really finding an
Yeah.
avenue, a platform that works for you. And then your network. Your network is huge. Like I've been so blessed to have opportunities like being featured on Cosmo because someone that I met at a conference was like, I thought of you and you would be great for this, submit writing. And it just happened. So I think
Yeah.
we got to continue the conversation. And I feel like every time we continue the conversation through various media outlets, not just one, but sometimes one is, it does really well for the SEO engagement, etc. You're kind of getting one step closer to like that mainstream, that stage per se.
Yeah. Yeah, and the translating this language for people, but what I'm hearing from you too is that at some point you just have to do what you're doing, and then the community will find you in that as
Yeah.
well.
I think sometimes too, like I've found myself not so much recently, but when I was really leaning into making content, I was like, how do I say this? I want to sound super smart. I want it to sound like I
Right.
know what I'm talking about and da da da. And it's like not everybody also responds to language that way. So I think it's important to want to like sharpen your communication as a professional, but also like be yourself because there's other people out there like you and there's other people who quote unquote speak your language.
Right. And have fun. Yeah, be yourself. I mean, that's just like God, being authentic. That is one of the foundations of the work that I do too, is just like, how do you get to that authenticity? And then what the hell is it too, right?
Hmm.
That's a long philosophical debate.
When it
Um,
comes to your work though, I think you talk a lot about the somatics, the body,
right.
right? The
Yeah.
feeling. And when people don't know or they don't have something to go off of, I usually tell them like, do you have a best friend? Do you have a friend that you can just say the weirdest shit, do whatever, completely be yourself? Great. That feeling that you have with that person, that's your point of reference. Think about moments throughout the day or spaces that you're in where you feel that way. How can
Mhm.
you seek and facilitate and foster more experiences that make you feel like that if that's what feels like being your most authentic self? I think having a point of reference also to the emotional body is really important rather than just like, I don't know.
Right. Well, when you're working with people, what is it how would you like to have your clients feeling at the end of a session or at the end of a I don't know if you do packages or long coaching programs or whatnot, but, what is it that you're looking for that you're hoping that they will get to?
Well, I'm going to start off. My goal is not to have them leaving my session per se feeling great. My goal is not that they leave feeling bad, but my goal is not, oh, by the end of this session, you're going to feel better. That's not my
Right.
goal.
It's enlightenment
Yeah.
101.
That is not my goal. You might leave my session like, Dakota just rocked me. Like, oh my God, like I need to take a breather. That's okay. My goal for
Exactly.
my clients, my hope for my clients is that when they leave my session, they have a direction. They have a first step. They have a thing that they can implement today or tomorrow that is going to in turn make them feel better long term. So it's like the momentary discomfort for long term success. So by the end
Right.
of my session, I send them a nice little email. It's very fruitful. I'm like, here's a recap of our notes, and here's the thing that you need to do or you need to practice. And when I see you next time, I'm going to hope that you did the thing because if not, we're going to talk about it because you're paying for this. So I really lean in heavy on like, do I want you to feel good? Yes. That's not my goal though. My goal is not to have you feeling good right now. My goal is that you leave knowing, okay, this is what I need to do to help me get to where I'm going.
I love that. Yeah, so, my background was with, in massage therapy. I started, years and years ago. And, so the goal with that really, is you want people to leave like just, in bliss and loving, like, ah, yeah, yeah, it's great. But then moving into the, the coaching and the relationship work, it's like, having to make that shift in myself, like,
Mhm.
you are not going to probably be feeling wonderful and, giddy and, oh my God, after this. Actually, you're probably going to email me in a couple of days and go, like, what the fuck did we do? Like, I am ripped open. It's
Yes.
like, holy shit. I get a lot of holy shit. And it's okay. Like being able to stay in with that, it's actually really beautiful.
Mhm.
You know, what is the hardest truth you've ever had to tell a client? Like, do you have a thing you're like,
That's a great
"Fuck, I gotta
question.
say this." I mean, maybe you don't, but
That's a great question. I don't remember if I said it exactly like this, but the the big idea behind the statement was, like, a combination of, like, why are you doing this to yourself, and why do you feel like this is what you deserve? Like, there was a heavy moment of, like, you're talking a lot about this other person, but we gotta take some accountability here. Like, why are you doing this to you? Yeah, that was a moment where I was like, I don't know how I wanna say this, but I kinda just said it, and they were like, "That's a really good question."
the thing about it is so many people will not say those kinds of things, you know? And it's not the same as like, victim shaming or something like that, where it's like you're responsible, but like, we do make choices. And even if this crappy thing happened over here, we actually have the authority. We have the capacity to make a different choice,
Mhm. Yeah,
sometimes after the fact, and sometimes you have to go through a shit ton of, healing, because of whatever happened. But
I agree.
yeah, that's great. I mean, bringing the
I was like, "Why are you doing this?" Because I
yeah,
think about
what?
the word, like, I have, like, a love-hate relationship with the word empowered. Because sometimes I feel like when we talk about power, it's like, you gotta take your power back, and it's like, we never gave it away. We always have it, and again, we're not talking about situations of abuse,
Right.
violations, like, those are separate here. But when we just speak about power in general, I'm like, "No, you didn't give anything to nobody, you're just not tapping into the power that's already there." Like, it didn't go anywhere, you're just not accessing it.
I
So
love that. Well, I love the way you're saying that. Yeah, that is just, that it is there. It is a base thing. And usually it's more about just kind of uncovering that. Like
yeah,
what are the ideas and the stories and the perceptions that keep me from really recognizing my own power and then exercising that authority, even though it is like scary as shit.
mhm,
And sometimes it's scary.
but I think that's the
Like
exciting
tell
part.
somebody no.
Yeah, but I also think I think, like, how we frame things is really important, like, maybe you were born with it, maybe it's Maybelline, like, you were born with the power, like, it's
Yeah.
there. Now it's just a matter of, like, "Hey, this opportunity is really scary, and, hey, you have an opportunity, like, you have choice here, you have options." That's that's pretty badass because there are some times when we have no options and we have no authority. So it truly is a blessing to be able to even say, "I can do this hard thing."
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, our biggest, jailer is our own mind a lot of times.
Mhm.
Well, I know we're gonna start wrapping this up a little bit just 'cause, but, you have a free workshop, and I definitely wanted to talk about this, the anxiety
And the
versus
intuition.
intuition, and yeah, talk about that. Tell
Yeah.
us about
So
that.
people on my website, or my Instagram, Get Real with Dakota, my website, Get Real with Dakota, you can access a worksheet that's like a two-part series to a workshop called Is It Anxiety or Intuition? Really, the purpose of that is to help people identify if they're being anxious or if their intuition is telling them that there's something wrong, something's off. As somebody that, experiences relationship anxiety, I've gotten really, really good at managing it, but it's still a thing. It can be really difficult to discern between am I just being anxious or is something actually off here? So I kind of walk people through the process of becoming more familiar with your intuition. What does it feel like in your body? Where do you feel it? Versus where do you feel the anxiety? What's the source of it? Where is it coming from? What are the stories? So when you're met with a situation in a relationship or the dating stage where you're like, am I just freaking out? Like, am I being anxious or is there actually something off here? It's going to be a lot easier. It's not going to be easy, but it's going to be easier to discern the two and then move accordingly. Because if your intuition is telling you, and it could also be two things at once, but
Mhm.
when you don't have a relationship to your body, to sensations, to intuition and anxiety are very loud. I had a friend ask me, like, how can you tell a difference? And I was like, girl, they're loud. Like sometimes I don't know. But because I made it a practice to check in with myself in the moments where my intuition's like, hey, or retroactively looking back on moments that my intuition was saying something to me and I ignored it. Now
Mhm.
I'm like, that was my intuition. That's anxiety. Now I know the difference. Now I have a tool of how to relate to either circumstance.
Well, damn, Dakota, that was great. Because, I called it, this is the somatic pleasure podcast, and my whole work is about sensation-based awareness, and
Mm,
you just spoke so fantastically to that idea of, going in, feeling the body, discerning the sensations,
mhm,
and finding a way to self-regulate, you know what I mean? And then you can separate out the thing. But if you're always caught up, it sounds like if you're always caught up here, I don't remember that rumination, that's fucked up,
mhm.
right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's the thing that it's just so I just love the way you just bring that right into the body and find and discern
Mhm.
that difference. That's great.
Thank you. I try.
So, before we bring this to a conclusion, is there anything else that you'd like to let the audience know about? Any offers, any things coming up? Um, yeah,
Yeah,
that you'd like people know
absolutely.
about?
Um,
Just
I think most things people can find on my Instagram, as I mentioned at Get Real with Dakota. Also my website, Get Real with Dakota. I have a lot of writing there, a lot of blogs that are coming out, really focusing on conscious monogamy as like my business is kind of shifting more into the relationship sphere versus like relationship and sex sphere. But I am possibly writing a book.
oh,
I might be writing a book. So that's something to keep an eye out for, and I'm really just kinda dropping, like, nuggets of what it's gonna be comprised of on my blog and on my Instagram. I think really what I want people to know is that a lot of things are going to change in terms of my content, but a lot of things are going to stay the same. So, that sounds very mysterious.
that is deliciously ambiguous. I love it.
Not usually very mysterious, but for the sake of that, a lot of things, there's a really big shift happening right now behind the scenes that I'm kind of gearing up for. I don't have like a launch date, but I am really excited about, continuing to create work that's like really that just feels really good and really aligned and
Mm.
really like this is what I'm supposed to be doing and I'm excited to see how people resonate with that. So fingers crossed. And this last thing I want to say that people that are probably listening to your podcast might already be a part of, but this is about you. Your newsletters are so good. Like,
Oh,
if people are not already subscribed to your mailing list, please do that now, yesterday, tomorrow, because I genuinely
oh,
look forward to them. And as someone that, has dabbled in the newsletter sphere, yours are great. So I want to say thank you for that because it's something
hey.
to reading, truly.
Thank you, Dakota. Yeah, how it is. You're out there putting stuff out. You never know exactly you might get one or two little replies or
Yep.
something. But thank you. That means a lot to me, actually.
You're
Appreciate that.
welcome.
So before we close, if someone were to take one thing from this conversation, from your work, into their own relationship, what would you want that to be?
One thing from my work or this conversation, I think it's kind of what we ended up talking about a little bit, like the blessing that comes with opportunity. And what I really want people to leave with in any space that I go into is like it is truly a blessing and a privilege to get to ask yourself these questions and co-create the kind of relationship that you want and deserve. And because I think it is such a blessing and a privilege, I think it is not something that should go to waste. So if you got it, use it. And there's many of people out there like yourself, James, many other creators, many other people that are just trying to like infuse more love and pleasure into this world that can help you take that first step so you don't have to do it alone.
Never have to do it alone.
Nope.
Love it. Dakota, thank you so much for coming
Thank
on here.
you.
Yeah, it's really good to see you.
Likewise.
Okay.